Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the CineFiles Extended Cut. So this is a show where we break down the biggest stories of the week, as covered by WatchMojo's The CineFiles, and some other big stories that didn't quite make the cut. So if you like this, be sure to subscribe to MojoTalks for more. I'm your host, Matt. We have Phoebe, Justin on the panel, and he's not a very special guest, but he's coming in through a very special means. We got Liam via Skype. Liam, what's up? You're on the TV, man. This is really cool.
Yeah. I'm actually in the same room as you guys, just on the other side.
Very elaborate.
Yeah,
I'm just off camera.
We lost a chair, so we're just like, you have to sit on the floor on the other side of the wall there.
Yeah.
Liam, thanks for joining us all the way from Vancouver,
Sunny
right?
Vancouver, Canada. Sunny. I'm kidding. It's not. It's
It's
very
not
rainy.
sunny. Well, we're in a dark room here. But anyways, thanks for joining us. We're really glad you could still join us, even though we poke fun at you every now and then.
I'm not glad.
This was really too much work.
Hey, anything to get Liam on board.
Yeah.
There's more reason to poke fun at me.
That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly. I guess let's start with Liam. He's the first to my left, even though technically he's not. He's taking a nice chug of water there. Liam,
Thirsty.
what have you been watching, my friend?
Well, they just added a bunch of things to Netflix. A bunch of modern classics, I would say.
Modern.
So I rewatched The Nice Guys, which I think is one of the best comedies of recent memory, at least.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree.
Totally
Ryan
agree.
Gosling's hilarious in that. He's so funny.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's physical comedy in that movie he's better than most comedians in that movie, I think. It's also just like a really well-written movie. I'm really excited to see, I think Shane Black is doing the new Predator movie, right? I'm
Yes.
pretty excited for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite different.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, Shane Black had done Iron Man 3, which people were less than pleased about.
Oh, right.
So coming out of Iron Man 3 kind of went back to his roots with The Nice Guys. That
Yeah.
movie is hilarious, like exceptionally funny.
There's the sequence when like Ryan Gosling just literally falls from like a building or like through
From a
giant
balcony,
windows
yeah.
like 3 times in a row in the span of like 10 minutes, which is hilarious. Like I was howling at that scene. So
Yeah,
that's
he wasn't brushed up on his physical comedy because, I mean, he's like next level in that movie.
yeah, he's definitely an underrated comedy actor, I think, especially now that he's been doing a bunch of roles where he just doesn't say anything at all. He's just like
I don't know if
the
he's
cool broody.
underrated in any regard, but he's definitely a good actor.
For sure. Phoebe, what have you been watching?
I watched Seven Psychopaths for the first time.
Oh,
I
first
had
timer.
never seen it. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I love Sam Rockwell so much. Like, I'm just loving him more and more every film that I watch him in. I also watched Zodiac for the first time.
Oh man.
Great film, very long.
Yeah.
Extremely long.
It's very long and it's kind of a slow movie, but it's definitely like an underrated Fincher movie, I think.
Let's just put it this way. I fell asleep towards the middle of the movie. I woke up and I hadn't missed anything. Because it's, you know
I guess
what I mean?
that's-
It's sort of, I don't know, slow moving, I guess is the right way to describe it. But it's good. That's not a criticism of it at all.
Yeah.
I think it's a good movie.
You-
But it was very long.
You probably missed a few like suspects.
Yeah.
Maybe
There's some good
maybe.
stuff. It's one of my favorite Fincher movies, I think, just because you're right. It's a slow burn, and it doesn't have like the most satisfactory ending because the real life story doesn't have a
Yeah.
very satisfactory
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
But like, I just feel like that movie is operating on every level. It's just so brilliant.
I
I
agree.
really liked the cast of the movie. I really
Cast is
liked Robert
great.
Downey Jr. in the movie. I thought he was really good. Mark Ruffalo he's not an actor that I would think of when somebody says like, oh, who's like a great actor. But he is. He's really a
He's
great
understated
actor.
in how good he
He's
is.
underrated and
Yeah.
he's very subtle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like him.
Liam, you're a huge David Fincher fan, correct?
I don't know if I'd say huge.
Oh. You're making me look silly here saying all this, but I know you're a fan of his. Would you consider this like one of his best movies, perhaps?
I think this may have been the first one of his movies that I saw. And I remember I was like pretty young when it came out, but I watched it. It was like one of the first rated R movies I saw. And being like that opening scene in the park is like so
Oh my
brutal.
god, yeah,
Yeah.
that's brutal
Yeah.
for sure.
That is like
Scary.
really hard to watch.
Yeah.
Great.
Justin.
Seven
Oh, go ahead.
Psychopaths too, though. Sorry.
No, go
Seven
ahead.
Psychopaths. I glossed over that movie. That movie is incredible, and I think way better than Three Billboards. and
Well,
underrated
I totally agree with you on that.
I don't know about that.
I know Justin would agree because he hates Three Billboards, the sicko.
Why do you
but
hate?
Oh, don't even get me started on Three Billboards.
It's
Yeah.
the second best movie of 2017.
I think it's.
What's the first best movie?
It's Lady Bird.
Oh, okay.
We
I
can get
should've
into
known,
that.
I
We can
should've
get into
known.
that much later on
Yeah.
down the line.
Shape of Water.
You know what? I don't even want to hear you talk about how bad Three Billboards is, Justin. So how about you just talk to us about what you watched? Because let's not get into that. We're gonna drop the gloves if we do so.
Yeah, fair enough. Been watching quite a lot this week. The MCU marathon continues.
Okay. Okay.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about Raiders. Saw Raiders of the Lost Ark this week.
That's definitely not an MCU film.
Definitely
yeah.
not an MCU movie. Raiders is a perfect movie. I don't think there's
Whoa.
anything that I can say about Raiders of the Lost Ark that hasn't already been said. But it's delightful. It's so good.
Delightful. It
So are
is.
you looking forward to the number 5?
5 or 6?
No, I'm not.
You're not
I don't
No.
think anybody is,
No.
Justin.
No, I don't really care. But Raiders of the
I
Lost
am.
Ark, great movie.
Liam all the way from Vancouver says he's excited. I don't know if he's just being sarcastic or not.
Whenever it comes out here in Vancouver, hopefully soon.
Because you're only there for one more week, perhaps, or something
I'll
at
be
most.
back in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I saw actually a movie in theaters, guys,
Wow.
and it was one that was marred in a little bit of controversy. It's called Isle of Dogs, directed by Wes Anderson.
I love dogs.
Well,
I thought you were going to
I
say
think
Rampage.
it's Isle
I love dogs.
Isle of Dogs. No, Rampage is out.
Why not just call
Later.
it an island?
You know,
Island of
I
Dogs.
can't speak for Wes Anderson, but what I can say is the movie is delightful. It is hilarious, and I think all of the controversy surrounding, oh look, it's a white man tackling Japanese culture, is uncalled for. That could be a hot take. We'll see what the comments are on the
I think that might be a hot
yeah.
take.
But to be honest, there were moments. It sucks because you guys haven't seen it, so we can't really riff off it. But there were moments where I definitely noticed. I was like, okay, like I can kind of see why someone might be offended by this, but it wasn't like. It wasn't big enough to garner the kind of backlash it was getting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just classic Wes Anderson. You know you're gonna get kitsch. You know you're gonna kind of get like funny vibes from a Wes Anderson movie. So I think you definitely have to take that into account when going into it. It's not one of his best, but it's definitely really funny. And the dogs are actually, for stop motion, are super cute, and
I
they're
love
very
stop motion
touching
animation.
moments.
Mhm.
Very great movie. I would definitely suggest it. But yeah, I think it was uncalled for, but really good movie, guys.
I'm looking
Really
forward
good.
to seeing it.
Check it
Still
out.
haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah. So for you guys listening, that was our What You Watching segment. That's where we talk about, well, you know, what we've been watching. And coming up though is the meat and potatoes of the show, which Liam referred to it once
Don't say
back
that.
in the
I'm
day.
so hungry.
Meat and potatoes. The top 3 stories of the week. So we're gonna get to that real soon. All right, we're back, and we're back just in time for the 3 biggest stories of the week, guys. So we're gonna start things off in a galaxy far, far away. Solo, a Star Wars story, the latest Star Wars film. Everyone's super excited about it, correct?
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a little controversy
I'm so
around it for
excited.
sure. But basically, earlier this week, they dropped the first official trailer for the movie. They had previously released like a little teaser trailer, but before this, like there was not much news about the movie itself. There was a lot of like controversy around it. There were actors getting like acting lessons. The direct supposedly. I think
It's funny.
someone apparently confirmed it, but you know, it's like, do you trust this source or not? Anyways, so supposed acting coaching. The directors were fired. The 21 Jump Street guys were fired. But this trailer, I don't know, in my opinion, it looks pretty good, guys. So I guess my question for you is, can Solo overcome all of the production issues it faced? It's kind of similar to Rogue One.
It is kind of similar to Rogue
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
And that movie turned out great. It turned out
It turned
fine.
out pretty darn good.
A lot of people liked it a lot more than I did. I liked Rogue One. I thought that it had a lot of good stuff going for it. I really
Yeah.
liked the third act. The ending was incredible.
Yes, I agree. The ending was, there's no other ending.
That
Yeah,
big
it was
set,
really
yeah,
good,
the
yeah.
set piece on the planet and all that stuff was great. It just took a while for us to get there.
Yeah.
But I think it's totally valid to be like Rogue One was a complete success. I think it worked on every level for a lot of people. Not
Yeah.
necessarily for me, but I can appreciate the fact that despite the fact that there was some directorial changes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
interference there, that the movie still turned out great for most people, and I feel like that is probably going to be the case for Solo. I mean, they're so careful about their product at Lucasfilm.
Oh yeah,
they're so protective of it, and that's why so many directors have been fired. It's because they're not taking chances, I guess you could say. They want to make sure that the product that ends up being the final cut is exactly what they want. I feel like there's a good chance that Solo is a good movie, not a great movie, but I don't think it's going to be the bomb that a lot of people are kind of almost hoping that it'll be. There's like a lot of ill will.
It seems to have gone to that point, especially like I'm a big fan of those two directors too, like 21, 22 Jump Street, hilarious. And I was like, this is cool. Like Lucasfilm, they're actually giving these like these two directors with a clear like style and vision kind of range to do what they want. But I was sorely wrong. Obviously, like you mentioned, they just want to keep their product as similar, or they have a vision, a clear vision. And when they don't fit into that, problems arise. So they brought in Ron Howard, who's kind of just like, he's a good director,
Capable guy.
He's kind of
he has
boring.
some good movies and he has some great movies.
Yeah.
I would
sort of. Oh, go ahead.
no,
Yes, Liam.
sorry. I would have loved to see what these guys would have done from the beginning if they had kept with it, because I think at the very least this movie is going to be basically a Rogue One, where it feels like it's almost two movies put together, or it's like a section here is good, but like this section could be better. And like
Right.
I think at the very least we'll get one of those where it's like you'll come out of the theater really enjoying it because there'll be some great moments, but other than that it'll be like a kind of mess of a movie.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I read an article where there was like they didn't name who the actor was, but apparently an actor was talking about like all the problems on set and stuff like that. And it wasn't necessarily, I mean, vision was one part of it, but apparently who is it's Chris or Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Yeah, they apparently they just like take forever on certain scenes and certain shots. You know, like some directors, they'll shoot like one scene 3 times and they'll be like, okay, that's good. They just kept going and going. Apparently they do scenes like 10 times each. And from what this actor said, it really got to the cast and crew. They're like, oh, you know, like, do they really have like an idea of what they want, or are they taking too much time on scenes? And it was just kind of, apparently, according to this actor, creating some sort of a riff on set, which is kind of an interesting little story to all this.
I don't know how I feel about that. When you have a project the size of Star Wars, take the extra takes if you need to. It's the whole point of having all that money is that you can take your time. How many directors have we heard of like on shoestring budgets that the final product that we end up with is not exactly what they wanted because they were rushing against time and they had to push up against the budget? This is a Star Wars movie. Take all the time you need. If it's going to make the movie better in the end, I don't feel like that's... Maybe there's more to it than simply a lot of takes. Maybe their attitude towards the cast was not the best. It's hard to say.
Which I would find surprising, though, because they seem just like such fun dudes that like just don't look for any beef or anything like that.
The guys who made the Lego movie don't seem like they would be hard to work with.
Exactly.
My issue is that the I don't remember his name. I can't remember his name. The actor that's playing Han Solo, he has like very little charisma, and I think that it's going to be a clear, you know, Harrison Ford playing Han Solo.
Right.
You know, like there's going to be such a stark difference between that character and this character because he has zero charisma. There's no part of me that's like, oh my God, Han Solo, you know, like I'm just kind of like, who that guy? Like, I don't care about him, you know?
It's just, I wouldn't say he has zero charisma, but he is doing like an impression in the trailer. Yeah. And I don't know if it's a great...
It's not
There's something weird going on there. I saw Liam, you were kind of, you had your hands up in the air there. So I want to throw it to you. You had a point you wanted to...
2 points to make.
Yeah.
One is maybe a hot take to Phoebe's
Oh,
point,
here it wouldn't be CineFiles without a Liam hot take, baby. Here we go.
Let's go.
to Justin's point, I think the way that they were shooting it originally, where it takes, is kind of a product of them being comedy directors first and foremost. And I think that they were like, I had heard that they were doing a lot of improv and getting into like, they were basically shooting it as a comedy movie, which I kind of would have liked to see, but I think for a Star Wars movie, you kind of want to stick to the script, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a super fair point. And prior to this, they didn't really have any kind of like directors of that style either, right? It was all just kind of serious directors or, I mean, that's a good point for sure.
And then to Phoebe's thing earlier,
What?
if you have not seen him in Hail Caesar, you need to, because he has all the charisma in that movie. I
Okay,
think
but
he's
I'm saying that
fantastic.
as Han Solo, he doesn't have any charisma because you have Harrison
Okay.
Ford, who is like literally like, you know, the heartthrob and whatever. Like, I'm just saying this from my perspective. Like, I think
Yeah.
that he can't pull it off. Like,
And it's
But
where
when
you-
I saw Hail Caesar, and he was in that role, I knew that he was going to be playing Han Solo, and I was like, this guy is going to be amazing as Han Solo. But then I see the trailer, and I'm like, I don't know. He's kind of
We'll
seems
see.
a bit awkward. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
on paper he works, but
It was
I don't know, I guess
interesting.
we'll see.
In the trailers, I almost kind of, I don't know if it's just me or not, but I noticed like there were some scenes where he was just talking like he normally does, you know, normal voice, and then there were other scenes when he had that kind of like throaty, gritty,
Yes.
kind of like Han,
He's
the
putting it
Han
on.
voice.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, I mean, if the acting coaching isn't true, it's like, I don't know if I believe that, because it's like there's such stark differences in certain scenes. So it's just like, anyways, that's just me. I'm gonna wrap it to the actual question. So do we think this is gonna be a good movie? Do we think like I can overcome these production issues?
Yeah, I think it'll be.
Yeah.
I think it'll be just fine.
Phoebe,
we'll see.
we'll see. Just a simple we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Liam,
I don't think Disney's going to let a bad Star Wars movie happen.
Okay.
I
think
agree.
They'll put as much money
Fair.
into it
Yeah.
as they can to make it a
Fair
good
point.
movie, or
Yeah.
at least make it a movie that people will walk out and be like, this is going to be good,
yeah.
or this is good. Sorry.
It probably won't
Yeah.
get the same kind of like Rotten Tomatoes score as Rogue One. That's my prediction. But I do think it'll probably be more funny. It'll probably be more of a fun ride, but maybe not received as well.
I'm excited for the second Wookiee.
Oh yes, that's interesting.
For the
We'll touch upon
Wookiee-
that really
the
quick.
Wookiee
But
hug.
apparently that Wookiee hug, apparently that it could be Chewie's wife,
Oh my god, that's so cute.
who had previously
Why are you
appeared
so
in.
mad?
I think he's mad probably because she only appeared on screen in the Christmas special,
He's
which
mad
no
because
one
she's
likes.
She's not his wife.
Yeah, that's right. I'm mad. I'm not mad. But if I were to be mad, it would just be like, I hate when they throw in this stuff in the trailer that's literally just meant to be like,
Like,
hey,
oh.
we got. Don't worry. There's gonna be merchandise. Like it was
Like
like, the
porgs.
porgs
Okay.
in the last
Yeah.
trailer. Like I would have much rather have seen porgs for the first time in the movie.
Then
I don't know.
like, okay,
It just
that's
became
fair.
this whole meme, and I feel like that's gonna happen to this. And it's just like,
I would have rather not seen porgs at all, to be honest.
damn.
No, I love him.
Love a
I
porg.
love Last Jedi, but
When that
cut all that stuff
When he
from the
eats
movie,
them.
please.
yeah, when that porg gets nice and cued, I was like,
I'm very pro.
That's so
I
sad.
was like,
Very pro.
all right,
That's so
now we're
sad.
talking. This is a movie.
yeah. Okay, so I mean, we'll see if it'll make some noise. This is a little segue into the next one. This one, no noise, because A Quiet Place is a very quiet movie. Isn't that correct, Liam? You saw it the last week,
Yeah, probably the most quiet movie ever made.
apart
Like,
from
forget all
silent
your
films.
your silent fare of the 20s, early.
Even those
early
movies had
1900s.
soundtracks.
Right.
You got the piano playing in the background.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. This
So-
is silent. This is real silent movie.
Yeah. So A Quiet Place, it's called A Quiet Place, but it's making a ton of noise at the box
Wow.
office, guys. Let me set this up for you. So we're going to dive into some numbers here. It's made over $63 million domestically so far, over $89 million worldwide, and these numbers have led the film to be the biggest opening for an original horror movie ever at the box office,
Wow.
and the third highest horror movie of all time, behind only It and Paranormal Activity 3, which is pretty crazy,
That is
especially
really crazy.
considering it's like directed by why am I blanking on his name right
John
now?
Krasinski.
John Krasinski
Yeah.
of Office
Krasinski.
fame. He even did an interview where
Phoebe's
he's like,
favorite actor of all time.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm indifferent. It's fine.
I'm indifferent, yeah. But yeah, even John Krasinski in like interviews has said like, I know when you think horror, you don't think of my name, and that's totally fine because I wasn't even a fan of horror. But I mean, taking all of that into consideration, it's pretty amazing that this film has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. And before you guys start saying, like, oh, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't mean anything, it has an 87% audience rating, which is really good. So, I mean, with all of this we take all this into consideration, is it time that horror movies are taken more seriously, not just in terms of awards, but like as art? What
No.
do you guys think?
No
Justin
way.
says no.
No.
Why?
Justin
I
says
think the
no.
people who appreciate horror movies have always
Justin.
appreciated horror movies, and the people that don't, their minds are not going to be made up like, period. It's just not going to happen. There have been so many brilliant, artful, incredibly original horror movies that at this point, if you're not convinced, you're not going to be convinced.
I am going to politely disagree with you. As a non-horror fan,
Ooh.
I've never been a fan of horror just because I'm afraid of everything. But after I saw Get Out, I was sort of like, this is a cool genre. Like, I had never ever even, thought of myself as a horror fan in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And now that like this new movie is coming out, A Quiet Place, I'm like, maybe this is something that I could, get into because it's like different. And it's weird how like Jordan Peele and John Krasinski are both comedians who are coming
Yes.
into
Very
this
good point.
genre.
That's a really good point.
Fresh, and I think that maybe has something to do with it. They have something different to bring to the table. I don't know if there's like a wavelength in their brains that works for comedy and horror,
Yeah.
but I just think it's really interesting, and it's sort of attracting me more
Yeah.
to the genre.
I would agree with you, Phoebe. I don't know what you're talking about, Justin.
You're so mad all day.
I was just joking, but
Angry
like I've always been a fan of horror, but I feel like especially in the 80s and even like leading up into this like I don't know if you want to call it like a renaissance of horror,
Yeah.
but like in the 80s it's basically just like slasher films, which they're amazing. I love all the slasher films, but they're not necessarily like smart writing or touch upon like deep themes. Whereas like Get Out has a bunch of those, and even this one, A Quiet Place. John Krasinski said like, oh yeah, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of horror movies, but I felt that like when I read the script, I was like, this is amazing because this is just gonna like this is an ode to my family and to my kids. This is my story to them, telling like I would do anything to protect you guys.
Aw, that's
so it's
so
just like you hear things
sweet.
like that, and then you think of like slasher films. You're like, yeah, their themes were never that robust or like that in depth. So I kind of think we're.
Totally disagree with you.
Oh, I know you disagree,
I
Justin.
totally disagree.
But I kind of think there's that shift starting. Liam, what do you think? Do you agree with us, or do you agree with Justin the Fool?
I think horror has always kind of had something to say, like always. Like you look at like something like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is like considered like super political, right? And like I don't know, I think there's a lot more merit to give horror, and like horror's always been that way. That being, I don't think A Quiet Place is really that artistic of a movie. I think like yes, it is a good horror movie, but I don't think people should be quick to be calling it like the smartest horror movie ever made. It's like it's a pretty simple premise and like it's executed really well, but I don't think it really does that much that hasn't been done before, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting. Like, I kind of like get the feeling that it's almost like this year's Get Out, just in terms of like how well it's doing, how well it's being praised.
But I wouldn't say it's like it's like doing as much or like saying as much. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Look at something like It Follows, where it's got all this great like symbolism and stuff like that in it. Whereas this, I think, is just like a really great, like big budget. Well, I guess it's not really big budget, but like A-list horror movie.
Right.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think, like, not that I've seen it or anything, but just going on what I've heard from it, I don't think that it's on the same level of politicalness as Get Out is. I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that from any sort of information that I've heard about it.
Right. And just to go back to what I was initially saying, that you guys
No, you cannot defend your points.
so rudely.
Go ahead.
Basically, even when Jordan Peele was doing press for Get Out, he was calling back to like Night of the Living Dead, which is like a horror classic that touches on a lot of the same themes. It has elements of racial dynamics and social justice, and how those things like affected us as a culture and affected our fears.
Right.
And that's like always been the case for horror. It's always been about like identifying and then kind of peeling back the curtain of like, what are we afraid of? And I think
I like that.
That's
I like
really
that.
poetic.
And I think
Did you come up with that yourself?
I wish I was that smart. I think like you go back and you look at even like horror classics that maybe don't get the kind of appreciation that they deserve, where it's like even movies like Alien, for example, has a lot to say about like female empowerment and like the right of your body to yourself. That movie's filled with like sexual assault allegories and stuff like that. So like it's always been there, and I'm really glad that these movies are like encouraging people to start thinking about horror differently. But I just feel like it's always been there, and if it can attract people to go back and look at the stuff that has always been there. It's still available. You can stream it on Netflix. There's great horror movies, and if it's encouraging people to go back and look at it, all the better. But in terms of like for like Academy Awards and stuff like that, and like are the people who have been talking about movies for so long and made up their mind about horror, is A Quiet Place going to change their mind? I have a hard time believing that.
I think Get Out changed their minds.
But even then, there was a lot of stories of Academy voters being like, "What the heck is this movie doing here?"
But they won.
I think
that's
I think it's one of those things where like there's like that one horror movie that comes along, and it's so unique, or it's just like it's so talked about that they kind of have to nominate it. Like you look at like Silence of the Lambs, which was the same thing. It was like you don't see movies like that nominated ever, but it was like it was such a game changer that they like kind of had to. I guess I think it won Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll kind of stay the same, where it's like if there's a horror movie that crushes it, they'll probably take notice. But other than that, I don't think it'll be a recurring thing anytime soon.
Yeah,
okay.
I have to agree.
So whether or not it becomes nominated for Best Picture or Screenplay or whatever have you, I'm interested to see if it'll be nominated for sound design and sound mixing, sound editing, because it's like it's funny because I've read articles where the sound design guy or sound mixer guy was just like, oh, it's a dream movie because it's like the sound is so important and it's like all on your shoulders, yet like there's so little work to do because it's so silent. So I'm interested to see what happens on that front.
I think it'll probably win. I'm calling it now. It's like it's a shoe-in to win.
Nice.
Okay, it should.
I'm gonna write this down here, and come January next year, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, cool. So the big story of the week. I mean, Netflix again, guys. Netflix is at the forefront of the news. This time. It's kind of controversial in the sense that it's involving one of the most prestigious film festivals of all time, the Cannes Film Festival. So earlier, Cannes announced they're like, look, Netflix, you don't put your movies out in theaters in France. So that, among other things, unfortunately means we can't consider you guys for any of the awards. You can still come to Cannes, you can still screen, but you won't be in competition. And Netflix, basically, this is the headline, Netflix bails on Cannes because they're like, you know what? We're just not going to bother going at all if you're not going to consider these movies for competition. So that's interesting. And also there's this 36-month rule thing in France where, like, if your movie goes to theaters, after its theatrical run, it can't go to a streaming site for 36 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is, like, a crazy long time.
Interesting.
And obviously Netflix isn't going to be down with that. So I can understand why they're just like, you know what, we're not going to go. But where do you guys fall on this? Liam, what's your opinion on all of this?
I don't know. It sounds kind of crazy,
doesn't it?
I don't know how I feel about this. I want to hear what Phoebe and Justin have to say.
He just wants to see your guys' opinions. I guess here I'll try to like make this a bit more nuanced. Do you think that, like, how big of an impact will Cannes have on the eligibility of Netflix? Like, not just at Cannes, but like in other film festivals or award shows. Do you think, that they'll start saying just like, oh, you know what, we're not going to consider Netflix either?
I feel like I've mostly seen backlash towards this. No,
yes.
Like I feel like I've seen, like, one of you guys sent that Jeremy Saulnier
yes
tweet or like that quote.
Yeah,
where he's basically like.
Yeah, I want to let Justin take this one because he was like chomping at the bit. But it's cool.
Great. Yeah. This is just like people standing up for their art, and I'm always for that.
Yeah.
Jeremy Saulnier, who directed Blue Ruin and The Green Room, was scheduled to direct all of True Detective season 3. Is only directing the first 2 episodes now.
Yes.
Very talented director, super interesting young filmmaker. Basically said that if anyone were to tell him that his streaming movie wasn't a real movie,
brace yourselves, guys.
They could stab themselves and light themselves on fire for all he cared.
Stab themselves in the face.
In the face.
In the face.
In the face.
You don't get much more personal.
Which, like, I read that quote and I'm like, this is exactly a Jeremy Saulnier movie.
That's right.
Yeah, totally.
That would be in a Jeremy Saulnier movie.
Straight out of one of those.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times the argument between, when it comes to Netflix and the eligibility or the prestige of these movies and like whether they should be part of the conversation, we often don't talk about the filmmakers, and we often don't talk about
That's
people
true.
whose movies are actually like being put in these boxes. And could you imagine, like, a lot of really interesting filmmakers have signed these deals with Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
The Duplass brothers are making Netflix
Oh,
movies.
man. I just want to shout them. Their movies are amazing. You guys, please
I am
watch
obsessed with
Duplass
them,
Brothers.
Joe
movies.
Swanberg has been collaborating a lot with Netflix, and the movies that he's put out and the series Easy have
Adam
been
Sandler.
incredible.
Adam
Let's not go into Adam Sandler. But I just feel like to disregard such a big pool of interesting and like up and coming filmmakers.
Noah Baumbach too.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach. It's not good for cinema, and the fact that Cannes is taking the stance to be like, we're a pro cinema. We want, to keep the cinephile world alive and keep the film culture alive.
Right.
But if you're gonna be just turning down really interesting artists, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, that just like goes to prove the point that we were talking about when we spoke about Steven Spielberg's comments, that like Netflix like has the back of these like, I guess like underappreciated filmmakers. And they're just proving the point that like these big studios and like the film industry as a whole is not willing to, take chances like generally. And I think like what Netflix did, it's like sort of like a passive aggressive thing to do, but I get it. Like, I just don't think that all this, backlash against them not putting their films into theaters is like, it doesn't need to be this way. It's silly. Like
I definitely see it. It's interesting because like the pro Netflix side, I'll read a bunch of points and I'll be like, yeah, I totally agree with this. And then like the pro theater movie going side, I'm like, man, I totally agree with this too. I mean, like when Annihilation came out, we're lucky in North America because it had like a theatrical release. But in England, it just went straight to Netflix. And a bunch of people in Netflix were like super upset because they're like, man, this is like a movie that demands to be seen on the big screen. Why can't I have that option? And even, why am I blanking on the director's name again?
Alex Garland.
That's it, Alex Garland. Even he was like a little bummed. He was like, at least it's being shown in theaters in the States. That's cool. But, like, unfortunately, England's getting Netflix. So it's like, I love seeing movies in the theater. And like all those filmmakers you mentioned, Justin, I love all those filmmakers too. So I want to be able to see them on the big screen. But it just sucks that, I'm going to have to resort to watching it on TV sometimes.
But does that mean that they shouldn't be eligible to win? Like
that. Well, that's the question, right?
That's the question, yeah.
Sorry, Liam, you were saying.
Is this just for movies that were shot as Netflix originals, or is this also for movies that were shot with the intended of getting a distributor picked up later on? And that distributor having been would be Netflix, right?
I would figure that if a feature film is made and there's no distribution and Netflix just like buys all the rights, and at that point I think it's considered a Netflix original. At which point,
but that's that's crazy because like that movie is shot as being a film that's going to be distributed in the theaters, right?
Yeah.
But like that, the only thing stopping it is like it being distributed by Netflix. That's basically like you're banning a company from.
I mean,
essentially,
movies, right? Essentially that does seem to be the way it's going. I mean,
that's
this is a tough conversation to have because there's so many like little facets that you have to talk about and
I'm mad now.
Consider.
I'm very mad.
Sorry, you're upset.
I'm mad now.
Liam's fuming.
I just think it's tough because I'm very pro movie theater. I think Netflix is doing people a disservice by not showing these movies in theater.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I can understand why when they create like an indie movie, they're not like, hey, let's rush to put this in 2,000 theaters.
That's
like,
a very good point.
Why spend the money if number one, that you already have your viewer base. You don't have to worry about distribution because you are the distributor.
Yeah.
You are the platform. And two, like, they're probably not going to make that much money.
Oh, no.
That's why other studios aren't signing these movies.
Yeah. And see, that's what I was talking about. Like, I see points from both sides. It's like those movies generally, anyways, to start, have like limited theatrical releases because they know they're like cinephiles are going to love them, but they know compared to like the mass general audience, not many people are going to see them in comparison, right?
Chicago,
so like,
LA, New York. That's
exactly.
where it's going to be for a very long time for
sometimes
those movies.
Montreal, but
occasionally we'll get those wide, indie releases are few and far between, and more so as time goes on. We're just going to see less and less of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's sad, but as long as people are, it would be sadder if they were disappearing. It'd be sadder if they weren't in theaters and they were nowhere.
Yeah.
At least they're on Netflix.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
That's kind of the silver lining here.
That's true, for sure. I mean, I think we're going to end it on that note just because it's such a difficult conversation to have. We all made some very good points.
Well, thank you, man.
Well, you know, I got to give credit when it's due. Even
were the
Liam in
best,
Vancouver had some good points.
So
Didn't
they were
ya?
okay. They were
Big
okay.
twist.
Yeah, big
I had
twist. Yeah.
some 5 out of 10s.
Some 5 out of 10s, yeah. So that was our segment, the top 3, the big 3 stories of the week. Coming up next is a little segment we like to call the cutting room floor. These are some stories that maybe weren't as big as the others, but, you know, they still demand to be talked about. So we're going to get to those next. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CineFiles Extended Cut. If you want to check out the show as an audio podcast, we're on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. So this is the cutting room floor, guys. These are the stories that didn't make the top 3, but you know we still need to talk about them, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna talk about one anyways, and this one's pretty big. Pennywise the Clown. That movie it killed it last year. And they're announcing some of the castings now. We know that Jessica Chastain has been cast as Beverly, and joining her will be James McAvoy and Bill Hader.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. I love both those actors, especially Bill Hader. Check out Barry on HBO TV.
Yeah,
I know it's
he's killing
TV,
it
but
right
just
now.
check it out. It's really good.
Check
So
out
that's
Parks
pretty
and
cool.
Rec, too.
What do we think, Liam? What do you think?
This is, I still haven't seen the first one because the trailers kind of put me off of that movie. But I
Liam
might
thinks
have
he's too cool to
watch
see
the new
it.
one because the cast of this new one looks to be incredible, right up my alley. Bill Hader, I'm a huge fan of. James McAvoy is always great. Jessica Chastain, always great.
Yeah,
So
I
you're gonna
agree.
have to check that one out when it comes out.
Cool. Phoebe, I know you have a lot to say about this, so that's why I'm going to throw it to Justin before. Justin, what do you think?
Big fan of Bill Hader. I think this movie is going to be great. I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how different the movie is. Just obviously, the fact that it's not going to be centered on children this time. Is it going to lose kind of like its luster, or it's like what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find it, so I'm not going to say it. But it's just it's interesting how the dynamic will change. Phoebe, what do you think?
I'm so excited. It was
Yes.
one of the only horror movies that I had ever watched and enjoyed. When I first went into the remake with Bill Skarsgård, I was wary because I was so obsessed with Tim Curry's performance in
Were
the
you?
original. Yeah,
See,
I
like-
just love Tim Curry. Maybe that's why. Like, I don't know if that's a hot take, but I just I love Tim Curry so much.
Agree's great.
I mean, most people love his version of Pennywise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I saw the new It with the kid
Bill-
from Stranger Things,
Finn Wolfhard.
Finn Wolfhard,
Finn boy.
I absolutely loved it. I
Yeah.
thought it was so good. I thought the kids' performances were so amazing. And Finn Wolfhard, obviously in Stranger Things, it's my favorite show. He's
Yes.
incredible. He's always incredible. I'm so happy that his character is going to be played by Bill Hader, who is
Is that
hilarious.
what it is? Yeah.
Yes, and he's amazing. I'm so
That's-
excited about it.
Crazy.
That's
I think I just have like a problem with.
Sorry, what
I
was
think I
that?
just have a problem with it as a story. I think it's just like too silly for me. I mean, like I know that like as much as I'm excited about the cast of the second one, from what I know, the second half of the book is where it kind of goes off the rails.
Well,
Yeah.
in the
Like,
book,
I'm
it's
pretty
kind of
sure-
intercut. Like,
It's like flashbacks
yeah.
and regular time.
it
yeah.
was like a weird creative choice. Not weird, but like an interesting creative choice to be like, let's make this 2 separate and distinct stories.
Yeah.
And I really think it'll pay off in the end. I think having that first part be like its own complete story of the kids and their experience
Yeah.
was like a lot easier to like pay attention to the like intricate relationships between the kids without having to balance like, and that's where they ended up, or they
Yeah.
ended, you know what I mean?
True.
I
yeah.
think it was a smart choice in the end, and I hope it pays off with the second movie.
I think it will.
Yeah, I mean, so I really hope it's good too. I have high hopes. The first was amazing. I really don't have any reason to think that the second's going to be bad. So, thumbs up for me on that. So the new releases, guys. Let's talk about that really quickly. We have Dwayne The Rock Johnson with Rampage and that horror movie Truth or Dare. What do we think? Do we think any of these are going to be good?
I'm gonna check out Truth or Dare. I love Blumhouse. I think they can do no wrong. Even when they do wrong, it's still like I cheer for them. I'm
Yeah.
on their team. So I hope it's good.
This is what I talked about last week. Was like, Blumhouse. Yeah, they've had a few really good movies, but then they also put out a lot of garbage, and I think this is going to be one of them. This one
Yeah,
doesn't
maybe.
look. This doesn't
I'll
look
check
good.
in. Well,
Yeah.
I'll update you guys next week
Excellent.
on how
Thank
it
you
goes.
so much.
Excellent. You, Phoebe?
Rampage? I don't know. I mean, I heard, because we did a review of the film, you guys should check it out.
Nice plug.
I heard that it's good if you like big monsters smashing shit. And
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. And the guy from The Walking Dead's in it.
Oh my god, Negan's in
Negan's
it. Yeah,
in it.
I love
So,
Negan.
Liam, you're laughing. Why are you laughing?
Just Negan's a funny character.
You're thinking of the quote, aren't you?
Yes, I am thinking of the
Yeah,
quote.
yeah. We won't.
Shitting
We won't.
pants.
This shit in pants.
I
Yeah.
had to say it, yeah.
I hope he sees that 30-foot wolf and he's just like, "Look at that wolf. He's big, isn't he? I hope you brought your shit in pants."
Yeah.
It just
Great.
says it again. Yeah.
I played the Rampage video game as a kid, so I was interested when I heard that they were making a movie, but I don't know if this looks up my alley.
Yeah. It's not my cup of tea.
Maybe wait
Not-
for VOD for this one.
Yeah.
I might
Yeah,
check it
we'll
out
see.
when
Yeah,
it's
maybe I'll
out.
wait
Exactly.
for it to come to a
Yeah.
video store near me.
Good luck.
Okay, so I think that wraps up the show just about, guys. So everyone listening, thank you so much for checking out the CineFiles Extended Cut. And be sure to subscribe to MojoTalks, where you can find us, you can also find us, I should say, on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. So I'm your host, Matt, again, my panel, Phoebe, Justin, and Liam, all the way from Vancouver. Guys, thanks for joining us, and you listeners, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.